For those of you who ever just sat there thinking, damn, Ledian's a terrible Pokemon, I want to solo run a game with it. Well, good news, this video's for you. And based on the nonsense you just heard, yes, I did a solo run of Pokemon Soul Silver with Ledian. Now, as you may be aware of by now, much like Heart Gold and Soul Silver, Ledian itself is not good. In fact, I'd even argue for it as one of the top 5 worst fully evolved Pokemon ever made. But just to paint an image, this thing has very little offense and is practically useless. That aside, beating the game with it could prove to be a challenge. So, let's talk about the run and strategy. So to start everything off, I took a save of Soul Silver and replaced this Totodile starter for a Leddyba. So, you know, I could start the run as early as possible, even though I'd still get it as soon as I get the Pokeballs. It doesn't change much. But, okay, now let's talk about the obstacles in this run since Ledian's stats, well, they're like this. 110 special defense, 85 speed. Those are both decent stats, right? 55 HP in special attack. Well, that's not good. 50 defense, and 35 attack. If you see any issue here, it's probably the fact that it's attack and special attack, or worse than unknown. That's the weak offense I have to deal with for this whole run. And it doesn't even help that its abilities are Early Bird and Swarm. Neither are great, and items just existing makes Early Bird useless. However, I was resetting for a good nature, and at the end of it, I got the bad end of the stick and got Early Bird. Speaking of nature, mine was modest. Definitely a top 3 nature for it, and it's kind of solo run. Considering you need a neutral speed nature or better to actually outspeed Red's Pikachu to actually do anything to his team. And of course, physical attack becomes useless once you get the Goldenrod anyways. So now, let's talk attack since this thing has very, very little going for it. So the early game itself is ruined by you just needing to use Comet Punch, as it's like the only move you have. Once you actually level up, get TMs and whatnot, here are the actual attacks I will have that will do anything, really. Silver Wind and Bug Buzz from Level Up, Solar Beam, Focus Blast, and Hyper Beam from the Goldenrod department store, Sunny Day from the Radio Tower, Hidden Power from the Lake of Rage, Air Cutter and Ominous Wind from the Battle Frontier move tutors, the Toxic TM from the Battle Frontier, Double Team from the Celadon Game Corner, and finally Giga Drain from beating Erica. Now, here's the kicker. I wasn't lucky with my Hidden Power. I got Hidden Power Flying, which means I can actually have a Flying type move early, however, it was only as early as Surf, which is not a good time to get it. Basically, I just had an inferior Air Cutter. But I digress. Moving towards items, the only held items I actually used were the Silk Scarf, the Bright Powder, Charty Berry, Wakan Berry, Yachi Berry, and the Aka Berry. The Bright Powder being in the Goldenrod Radio Tower, while the other items all came from the Mother Savings. Now, on the topic of items, I did use healing items in battle and X items when they were needed most, but I did try being conservative about it. Now, let's talk about the actual gameplay, the part that gave me physical pain. So, the early game was brutal. Comet Punch, as I said earlier, is horrid, and your only real option until you get Silver Wind. So, in fact, it was so terrible, I lost my first Falconer fight, and actually needed to evolve into Ledian to beat him. This fight, just as a whole, was awful and luck dependent. Now, the next important battle was Bugsy, where I wiped once thanks to Scyther critting me twice, and just all around doing too much damage. After gaining 3 levels and learning Silver Wind, I came back with a vengeance and won. The next important battle was a little sketchy, because despite getting Silver Wind boosts to deal with Rival 2's Ghastly, I still got hit by Curse, which is not good, and this is basically a precedent for how terrible Morty's Gym will be in the future. Regardless, the rival went down pretty easily. Next up is Whitney. This fight was an absolute joke, because this so-called challenge was nothing for my Ladybug, as I had just gotten access to Hyper Beam and most importantly Focus Blast, and just one-shot this pushover's Pokemon. Even then, in casual play, this battle is still pretty easy. People really just don't understand how to play this children's game. And of course, Rival 3 was a joke since his team was just easier to deal with. Now, the next part of this game was awful. Morty's Gym. As Ledian will only have Silver Wind and Solar Beam to damage anything in this gym, which Ghastly and its evolutions all resist. Going into Morty, Ledian had fainted 6 times. But after some annoying X item usage, I managed to beat Morty, only failing the battle once. So knowing that the Rocket HQ stuff would just be very slow, and since I didn't have any Surf Bait, I decided to go do Chuck's gym next and grab the Good Rod. One Hyper Beam and a Solar Beam later, and Chuck was already defeated. Next up was Jasmine. My Ledian fainted 5 times, just struggling to land 3 Focus Blasts in a row. Regardless, we had 12 total fails at this point, but whatever, we beat the battle, it doesn't matter. So after running from a shiny Gyarados and learning that it will respawn if you don't catch it, I decided to go do the Rocket HQ nonsense. Anyways, who cares? Let's just talk about Price. And I had wiped to him 1 time, thanks to getting frozen twice. But who cares? I spammed Solar Beam and the entire fight was over. So now we're reaching the climax of the game. So skipping the radio tower, since that is the most anticlimactic thing ever. Rival 4 was a joke like Rival 3, however he gave me another Silver Wind victim. Now, Claire. Now, I beat Claire with only 1 wipe, thanks to terrible setup. The second time, we just ruined her. Now, up till this point, all of the fights we had to do were just baby easy, and just had terrible RNG. But now, we get to talk about the hard part. Now, the Kimono Girls were just downright horrid, causing me 5 resets just between the Jolteon and Flareon. Because here's the thing, right? You have to do all 5 battles in a row, which means you can only give a single consumable item. So I can only bring a Wakan Berry and survive a Thunderbolt from Jolteon, or I could bring the Aqua Berry and survive a Fire move from Flareon. The issue is, I can't survive both. Basically, I was only able to cover 1 attack, but not both. Regardless, I eventually beat this, and we went on. Next, I ran from a shiny Lugia, and then finally, after smashing some rocks for an extra max ether, it was time for the end of the challenge. Not really. Alright, Elite 4. Will was dummy easy. I just spammed Bug Buzz and I won. Now, the rest of the E4 was going to be a small problem, considering I only had 2 PP healing items, so if I didn't heal any of it, I would be stuck struggling and fail. Everything had to be planned out very carefully. Now, Coco wasn't fun because of 3 factors: Double Team, Toxic, and Hyper Beam recharge turns. Regardless, I beat the fight without any resets, but I did have to max Ether Hyper Beam once. Now, Bruno was simple. Give a Charty Berry, and spam X Defense and X Specials. That easy. Although my Karen fight went down fast due to a singular X Special, and everything feigning in 1 hit, her Gengar did get a Spite off, which would cause some PP problems in the long run. Regardless, it took me 3 attempts to beat Lance. That's how many times Gyarados crit me with Ice Fang. Regardless, after setting up, Hyper Beam just cleaved through the entire team, with the exception of Aerodactyl, because I only had 5, so I just pelted that guy with Focus Blast. And just like that, I beat the game, the challenge run was a success and over. However, I hate myself, so I decided to extend the challenge to the post-game. So this is how the Kanto experience went. So after making it to Kanto, the first thing I did was fight Sabrina. No items, just click Bug Buzz, it's easy. Erica also felt the same way, spamming Bug Buzz. So naturally, after 2 free battles, I decided to go do the power plant stuff and get the third, Brock. My plan was simple: teach Sunny Day, spam Solar Beam, a free win backed by a Charty Berry, and Focus Blast, which would ultimately secure the KO on the final Pokemon when the sun ended. Next in line was Surge. 1 X Special, 1 full heal, and everything fell to a single hit. Because as it turns out, Ledian's EXP curve is stupid easy to level up with. Next was Misty. My plan was just repeat the Brock fight, but with a Yashi Berry for the Lapras. Now, Janine was a victim to Ledian finally having Air Cutter. And then it was finally time for Blaine. Surprising how I went all the way through Kanto's gym leaders, and the Fire Gym still couldn't cause me to reset at all. Toxic with some X defense and max potions got me through this battle with no issue. And finally, but for real this time, was Blue. This fight caused me 3 resets. I did not spam enough items as a showcase to you why they are completely broken. Regardless, having Toxic stalled half of his team and ruining the others with attacks from a level 75, it was finally time for Red. How thrilling. And finally, but for real this time, Red. Another victim, ruined this time by Bright Powder and Double Team, alongside Air Cutter and Giga Drain to cover the other Pokemon. 25 whiteouts total. X items completely broke this fight with an inability to get hit as well. And just a reminder that this Snorlax, Blastoise, and Lapras all have perfect accuracy blizzards when in the hail. That's it. It's possible to beat the game with just a Ledian. This game is pretty easy, barring the Kimono Girls. However, the post-game kind of just requires you to have incredible luck. I wouldn't recommend this experience to anyone, but Game Freak, please bring Ledian back. I want to solo run this thing through Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. But until next time, smack that subscribe button and drop kick the like button.